In a recent video by Nilly, he revealed the current rankings of all the pro players amongst each other. So he got lists from all these players that you can see on screen right now: Vilese, ACCM, MBL, and a few other guys. And on this new list, for the first time since these stats apparently have been tracked, Hera was voted as the #1 AOE2 player in the world right now. So how did this come to be? How did it come to be that after all these years, the players all of a sudden agreed that somebody other than the Viper is the #1 player? So if we take a look at the S tier tournaments in the last 2 years, so since 2021, we can track Hera's performances and we'll notice something quite interesting. So it starts off with a top 8 finish, then he won Hidden Cup 4, of course, top 1 there. He goes on to some other S tier tournaments, top 2, top 8, top 1, top 12, top 16, DNP. Then we enter a quite sick run. Top 4, top 4, top 4, top 2 at Warlords, top 1 at Grand Melee, top 2 in T90 Platinum League earlier this year, and top 1 at NAC4. That has to be highlighted, especially in that tournament just recently, finished 2 months ago, whatever it was. He was like early Hidden Cups level of dominance by the Viper. That's what Hera was like. He didn't lose any games. Only in the finals did he start to drop some maps, but quite frankly, the games that he lost against Leary in the finals and also in the group stage, it almost looked at times like he was kind of just letting off a little bit there. Of course, I'm not trying to accuse him of anything. I'm just saying this tournament was never ever in doubt for Hera to win, and for such a huge S tier tournament to go that crazy dominant to one player, that is absolutely exceptional. Now, into this list of tournaments, we could also include Jordan's Medieval Brawl that kind of spanned through the early months of this year, where he also absolutely dominated everybody. Is not quite an S tier event, but in terms of participating players, it certainly is. He took top 1 there as well. So that's kind of the tournament placing that we've seen out of Hera recently. And what I have to point out as super crazy is that it's not like he just burst onto the scene and was just better than everybody. If you guys remember back to the first couple of Hidden Cups where you could hear T90 and Dave say, yeah, there's some players out there that might be able to challenge Viper sometime soon. Hera is a good guy. He's playing really well, but we haven't really seen him doing it in tournaments just yet. So it's been years in the making, and quite frankly, in the early years of his career, so to speak, he wasn't that. He wasn't able to put up these performances, especially in the big S tier events. As we could see right there, it took him quite a while before he got to consistent top 4 finishes, and that really has only been the case since the back half of last year. So this is kind of his peak, his era of dominance has truly begun in the last half year or year. And it's unprecedented, quite frankly. If we look at other esports, what Hera is doing right now is not a thing that typically happens in games where lots of people compete, put in huge hours, and try to be the best at the world. So why is this so exceptional? Well, not only is he super dominant in these tournaments and wins every other one, never placing badly, he also never loses to the lower tier of players. And that is something that you couldn't even ever say about the Viper. The Viper usually would win every tournament, especially like in his peak or in the years that he dominated. Sure, he won most of the tournaments and was crazy, different type of crazy dominance of his own. But he, and even still this is the case, he and other top players can lose games and sets to lower ranked players. It's all about form on the day and overall consistency. Just most of the time Viper was able to clutch it up, but with Hera it's totally different. He's so fundamentally sound and ahead of everybody else. If you're not in the top 4, you can't ever beat this guy. Like, he's only ever losing to Viper, Leary, or Tato. Tato especially has some quite surprisingly good results against him in the last year or so. But that's it? How many tournaments has Viper exited against players like Vilesa now. And Vilesa is not a bad player. He's just under that top crop of players, even in accordance to these pro player lists that we saw in Nilia's video that I mentioned earlier. So Vilesa is not a bum, but Hera is not losing serious to players like that, especially not in the big events here. So that's crazy. And add on to that all the stuff that Hera is doing outside of these tournaments. Now, some might argue it doesn't matter what players do outside of the best events and what they do in their free time and whatnot, but I argue this makes it even crazier and sets him apart from other dominant esports players. What I'm referring to is 50 streams in the last 2 months. So he's streaming, think about what that means. So he's streaming in the last 2 to 3 months, 50 streams. That means more than one stream every other day. Which other pro player does it at that level? And that streams ranging from 1.5 hours to 7-8 hours in length. So he's putting in the time. And that's not all he does. Like, we have many streamers in the community. He has at least one daily upload on his WOD channel. So that's where just the gameplay stuff goes, unedited, just what's uploaded. Fair enough. Maybe that's not the most type of work, but others don't do it in that volume. On top of that, he has 40 uploads in the last 2 months on his main channel. That's, again, more than every other day, a video on his main channel. Now, a few of those are just some clips from the stream maybe, or some fun observations, some cool ideas that he comes up with, but that's also extra effort he has to put in. But most of those are well-researched or well-thought-out videos teaching about a certain concept, guides, opinion pieces. So that's on top of all the effort he has to put in. And then, in order to maintain his crazy level of gameplay and knowledge, he's grinding the ladder like crazy. In the last half a year, it's difficult to remember a time where he was not ranked 1 on the ladder. Now, 2 or 3 days ago, he got surpassed by MBL, who has now 3 accounts in the top 3, which is his own kind of crazy record that might deserve a video of its own. But generally, I would say 95% of the time in the last half year or so, Hera has been number 1 on the ladder. And not with a few games. He's got some of the highest game volumes of all the players out there on the ladder. And on his Smurf account, where he's top 10, I believe, as well on that, he's got a win rate higher than any other player in the top 30. So he plays crazy amount of games. He has one of the craziest win rates. He's nearly always permanently number 1 on the ladder. And on top of that, he's doing unprecedented amount of content around the game, and in the tournament, he nearly always is in the finals as well. Like, what more can you ask from a player? That's the crazy thing, and that's what we don't have in any other esport. Add on top of that, that he's the most, hands down, the most active pro player in the Discord channels. Specifically, I'm referring to, since that's the tournament that we're having right now, the King of the Desert tournament. So KOTD5, nobody has provided more feedback, argued back and forth with the organizers, and constructive fashion as well, right? I mean, maybe you could argue there's some whining in there every now and then, but it is constructive at all points. That's my point. And add all that time that he's able to invest together, all the time that he's not even only investing into being sharp as possible in the game, but also into making sure the community gets better by partaking in productive discussions in the tournament discords. He's casting games while not playing himself, so he's even making content that way that doesn't even necessarily go directly to his channel. He's streaming and uploading YouTube videos more than every other day. So what do you want from a player other than that? If we contrast this against some of the other players, by the way, I think of Faker, for example, in League of Legends, who's like one of the, in a Premier esport, he's like the GOAT, basically, in Premier esports. This guy came into the scene dominating like crazy from day one. So as soon as he started playing pro, he was all over the scene. Hera wasn't like that. It's not like he came in with some God-given talent or had just grinded the ladder so much that he was much better than everyone. He worked his way up over the years, receiving shit from the fans over the time, having disappointing tournament finishes, quitting the game at times for AOE4 or for League of Legends or whatever. Hera's been through it for years at this point. And then Faker in League of Legends, he plays the game 20 hours a day or whatever, crazy amounts of practice, sure, but he's not streaming every other day. Sure, he's got obligations contractually to stream every now and then, like once a week or whatever they're doing, but that's it. No extra YouTube videos, no guides, no for the betterment of the community, being like a member of the player association or something like that. That's not duties that Faker has to do on top of being just grinding. So think about that. Hera is doing all of that while all around the world there's top players grinding at their PC the entire time, not having thousands of viewers in their stream to entertain, not having these active YouTube channels, and getting involved in Discords, doing whatever, having guest appearances on other people's streams to cast and whatnot. There's people working around the clock trying to surpass him or reach his level, and they're not able to do it because Hera is just in that crazy a form, so fundamentally sound that nobody has been able to reach his level in this last half year. And quite frankly, King of the Desert 5 that's ongoing right now, I would be surprised if he wasn't winning that one as well. I'm picking him as a tournament winner in this one already.